What is going on, YouTube? We are back with another video. And yes, if you can see, the dogs are out barefoot. Now, that being said, let's get right into the video. Now, the reason I'm standing is, to be honest with you, I don't like sitting in that chair. And so moving forward, I think I might start making these videos all standing, at least when I'm in my office space. Now, what I want to talk to you guys about in this video is why and how you need to, and how to actually implement focus into your lifestyle to achieve your goals, and why it's so important. See, oftentimes I think that we put the less priority things at the top of the totem pole, and we put the more important things at the bottom of the totem pole, right? And if we can instead use focus and actually work towards our goals, then that's when we're going to find that all of the progress we need starts to come a lot faster than we otherwise would have thought. Now, for years, I thought, I wanted to grow this business, right? X, Y, and Z, and it's like overthinking, and it's not implementing as much possible effort as I'm capable of, and not actually focusing with the intention that held me back. And the same thing goes with fitness, right? So many people, they're in the gym for 2-3 hours, and I was like that in the past myself, talking to people, thinking about what workouts to do, all these sorts of things, checking their phone, scrolling on Instagram in between sets, rather than just keeping your focus. And when you keep your focus, you can make far greater results, right? So like, when you realize that in the gym, as with a lot of other things, if your focus is not there, then not only is your conscious brain taken off of what's important at the current moment, but your subconscious brain is also being, developed into habits and eventually patterns, or I should say patterns that turn into habits that don't suit you, right? And those of you guys watching don't likely know about this, but in my community with my inner circle clients, I have a video where I talk about the conscious and the subconscious brain. And basically in there I talk about, with one of the first modules, the subconscious brain, how it's firing about 20 to 40 million neurons per second, and the conscious brain is firing only 20 to 40 neurons per second, right? So a million times of a difference, right? And the reason that's so important is, if our subconscious brain is being filled with thoughts and our conscious brain is only being filled with one millionth of that, then think about how much more progress you're going to make if your subconscious brain is set for success, right? And so if you're unable to focus with your conscious brain, with your conscious effort, then think about all the times where your subconscious brain is kicked in, right? You're having these thoughts that are not suiting you and not allowing you to get closer to your goals. So in my community, I talk about how, if we can train our subconscious brain to look for the more important things and actually train it to increase that number so that our conscious brain is being fed from our subconscious, and it's going to make it a world of difference, right? Like, so many people that want to get into better shape, they have these conscious thoughts and these conscious effort of, okay, I'm going to go in the gym and do X, Y, and Z. But all of the subconscious is taking over, and the doubt creeps in, the fear creeps in, the lack creeps in, and all of these things, to be honest with you, they take away from you putting enough action. So not just do you need focus to apply to your conscious brain, but you also need focus so that eventually that conscious brain can operate more efficiently, right? And so many people, they're in the gym for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever, and the amount of time that they're actually conscious and focused on working towards their goals is such a small percentage of that. And it's going to take away, from the amount of effort and work you can get done. So if you can train your subconscious brain to have focus all the time, that will allow your conscious brain to more easily get into that focus zone. And the more that you practice these things, the more repetition you take with applying intention and focus to your goals, the easier it becomes for your conscious brain to operate more efficiently. So now like I mentioned, those 20 to 40 neurons per second that your conscious brain is operating at, that's going to operate a lot more efficiently. And so whether you're in the gym, whether you're trying to achieve a goal of some caliber, you're making your conscious brain more efficient, but also now your subconscious is going into a state where it's searching for answers, right? And so for me, when I got into my fitness journey, as crazy as this might seem to some of you guys, I trained my subconscious brain, and I wasn't even conscious of it. I trained my subconscious brain to look for more opportunity, more possibility, and that eventually carried over to my conscious brain, looking for more opportunity, more possibility, and eventually taking more action, right? And by no means is this an easy thing to do, especially when, I briefly touched on this in my community, right? Like when your brain is looking for answers to these things, it's going to start to find answers, right? But if you're not searching for these answers, you're not going to find them, right? And so, as funny as I might seem to say, when I was 140 pounds, like I talked about in one of my pinned videos on my channel, how I went from 140 to 200 pounds, and I've even gotten over 200, close to that 210, 215 pound mark. And yes, my weight has fluctuated from 200 to 210 to 220, down a little bit, up a little bit, but I've consistently maintained over that 200 pound weight for, the past 5-7 years, right? And I think the main thing that contributed to that was, when I was 140 pounds, I trained my subconscious brain to look for the possibility and the opportunity. So I was 140 pounds, telling myself that one day I'm going to be 215 pounds lean. And as crazy to sound to most of my friends that were 130 pounds, 150 pounds, and they were like, yeah, right, bro, you'll never be that big. I genuinely believed that there was possibility, and I knew that it was going to happen. I just didn't know when. But I knew it was going to happen because I knew that there were people out there that had, gained 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds, even more naturally. And that's something that I looked at as, okay, I'm in no way going to be outworked by these people. And I know that it's possible for me to do those same things. I just need to figure out how, and I need to give it the right amount of effort and time. And eventually it will come to fruition. And that's exactly what happened. And now simply by applying focus to the current moment and being aware of where I was, right, 140 pounds, but also training my brain to look for that opportunity, that possibility, it allowed me to start to seek answers, right? And so when I knew, okay, I'm only 140 pounds, right? I want to get to 215 or 225, right? Like as I started to get closer, I started to just push that goal further and further away. As much as some people might say, achieve that goal, which is great, the further you push that goal away, if you're not the type of person that's going to get demotivated and get frustrated, which I'm usually the type of person that gets more motivated as I'm further from the goal because I know that I have more work to do and I end up taking more action, right? As I started to push it further and further away, it got me closer to getting to that goal, right? And so I started to realize, okay, I want to put 60, 70 pounds of muscle on. How am I going to do that? Well, most people around me are going to the gym 2 times, 3 times a week, 4 times a week. And some of them that are doing 6, 7 days a week, they've only done that for a year or 2 years. And I wonder what would happen if I did the most amount of possible work in the micro and I did over the long term in the macro. And that's what I did, right? Like I started to see people, when I was growing up, getting into fitness, that would work out 6, 7 days a week, and they made insane progress, like within a couple of months. And they did it for a year and a half maybe, and then they stopped doing it, and they lost all their progress. And I also saw people on the flip side that had more of that long-term approach, and they looked at 2, 3 times a week, I'm going to go to the gym for the next 5 years, and eventually I'll get there. And I saw that some people had, one side of the result I wanted, a lot of that results, but shorter period of time, and they were just like super obsessive with it. And I started to see other people that weren't really making the progress that I wanted, and they were just remaining patient. I realized, okay, well, if I do everything possible in the micro and I'm patient in the macro, then it will come to me, right? And I will be able to achieve that thing if I do as much as humanly possible in the micro and I do it over the long term, right? And so 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week over 12 years did that, right? And not to say every single week was I doing 7 days or 6 days. Some weeks I only did 4 days, right? But for the most part, I was doing way more on average than the average person. And I knew that because I was taking way more action, I was going to get far greater results. And it wasn't me versus them. It was more so a matter of I want to get to this tangible result. These people don't believe it's possible. These people are telling me it's not possible. But these people also are doing a lot less than I am, and they're looking in a more short time frame. I'm looking long term. Like, I know scientifically it takes X amount of time to get to that goal, right? So what I'm going to do is as much as humanly possible, more than the average person, and I'm also going to do it over the long term. So I get the best of both worlds, right? And ultimately that landed me at 210, 215 pounds, sometimes a little bit heavier, sometimes a little bit lighter, right? But the reason that I think I saw so much success with my fitness is because I was able to find that focus in the conscious, and I was also able to reprogram my subconscious brain to see more of that, right? And so when I started to, take action over the consistent long haul, and I started to take way more action than absolutely necessary, right? Maybe not more than necessary, right? Like, if that was my goal, it was necessary, right? But I wanted to take more and more action because I wanted to guarantee, even though nothing in life is guaranteed, I wanted to guarantee that I could get to that position. And so what did I do? Well, I went to the gym way more than the average person. Every single workout, I did way more exercises, way more sets than the average person. And when I say average person, what I meant is all my friends, all the people around me that I saw that were doing 4 exercises per workout for their chest day, for example, I was doing 8 or I was doing 10. When they were doing, 1 leg day a week, I was doing 2. When they were doing, hitting 100 grams of protein, I was aiming for like 150, right? And so, not to say that I was always perfect, but I was always aiming to do way more than the average person, not to be better than them, but so that I could be the best version of myself. And I knew that I wanted far greater results than the average person had, right? And so, by the way, if you're gonna drink Amino Energy, never try this flavor. It's absolutely horrendous, but all the other flavors kick. And I got this flavor because I wanted to try it out. It's disgusting, but there's a sip left, and it'll fuel me for this YouTube video. Don't try blueberry lemonade. It's garbage. Try the strawberry, the watermelon, or the grape, and you won't be disappointed. There's only 100 milligrams of caffeine, so that's why it's one of my favorites. Tastes good and gets the YouTube video done. But back to the point, you need to find focus. And if you find focus in the conscious, and you're also focusing on reprogramming your subconscious brain, then eventually all of these subconscious thoughts that most people are having, right? Like, oh, I could never gain that much muscle. Or like, oh, I could never go to the gym 7 days a week. I need a rest. Like, I could never eat that much protein in one day consistently over 10, 12 years. All those things, I started to reprogram my brain as like, I could do that. Like, why not? Like, I'm willing to do these things. Like, I don't care what it takes, I'm going to get to that goal. And 12 years later, I was able to get to that position, right? And as I started to get to like the 205, 208 mark, for example, that 215 number, I pushed back to 225. So now it's like, okay, I'm getting closer. I'm going to make this even more challenging, right? Like, because what happens when you set your brain up for larger goals is you have to think in larger quantities, right? So if I'm thinking I need to gain 60 pounds of muscle in the next few years, I'm thinking like, okay, I need to do way more than the average person is, because most people are looking at it like, I want to need 5 pounds of muscle, or I want to need 10 pounds of muscle, right? Or most people, when it comes to fat loss, they're looking at like, I want to lose 10 pounds, I want to lose 20 pounds. But imagine if you were like aiming for 20 pounds, but your brain was focused on like, how can I lose 100 pounds? Well, that 20-pound fat loss is going to come off a lot faster, right? Just like with the flip side of muscle growth, if you're focusing on, okay, I'm going to gain 75 pounds of muscle in the next 2 years, even though it might not be actually realistic, it is, by the way. There are people that have done it naturally, but like, not to say that it's not realistic, but even if it, hypothetically speaking, is way outstretched, if you can actually believe it's possible, then it's going to force you to take way more action. When you're forcing yourself to take way more action, your brain subconsciously, when you're not actively in the gym eating these foods, it's looking for answers to these problems. It's trying to find solutions, right? So setting higher goals, which I really want to emphasize in this video, setting higher goals forces your brain to take a lot more action than it otherwise would. So if you set a 20-pound weight loss goal or a 20-pound muscle growth goal, you might only get like 18 pounds on the way there, and then you start to see like, oh, I'm actually pretty content with where I'm at, and you start to slide backwards, right? You start to slide backwards a bit, and you're just not satisfied. But if you set that goal as, I'm going to lose 55 pounds, and you get halfway there, and you lose, 30, for example, you're like, wow, I just achieved way more than I actually wanted, right? And you can always stop at any point But the nice thing is setting a higher goal is going to force you to take way more action. And so like what that does on your subconscious when you set these high goals for yourself is it forces you to end up following through way more than you otherwise would have. And you need to find focus. So when you're conscious, you can do these things, but also on a subconscious level, when you're sleeping, when you're going about your day-to-day life, you start to just look at things and think of things differently. And then pretty soon people are like, yo, dude, how'd you build so much muscle? And it's like, well, I put on 50 pounds of muscle, right? But I always wanted to put on 100, right? And so it's like, had I set myself as like, oh, I'm going to gain 50 pounds of muscle, I probably would have not put on 50 pounds of muscle or 60, whatever the weight number is, right? But because I started to set the bar so much higher for myself, it caused my brain to think so much greater. So if you've ever read the book 10X, the 10X rule by Grant Cardone, if you're, business or entrepreneurial minded or savvy, whatever you want to term it, I would say definitely read that book. The whole concept of it is, whatever goal you're working on, right? 10X it. So if your goal is, I want to make, X, like $10,000 in the next couple of months, if you 10X that, and it's like, okay, how would I have made $100,000 in the span of the next couple of months? Maybe it doesn't actually happen. Also, people do that, right? But maybe it doesn't actually happen. But you end up thinking in this grander scheme of like, how would I do that if, hypothetically speaking, I were to? And you end up taking far greater action than the average person. And then when you do that, you realize, okay, I'm actually getting a lot further along than had I set this smaller goal. And so in the long term, you're still achieving the goal you set up for yourself, but you're probably going to surpass it by so much. And so setting these higher thresholds, these higher levels for yourself, forces you to take so much more action, right? And so you need to have focus on a conscious level, because this way, having focus allows you to lock in and actually achieve your goals and not procrastinate and actually, mess around or like actually get stuff done, which is what's helped me with my business, with my own fitness goals. But it's also going to make it so that when you're not thinking about these things subconsciously, your brain is looking for solutions. And the more that your brain looks for solutions on that subconscious level, the easier it becomes, because you, instead of just consciously focusing and acting, trying to achieve these things, you are becoming the type of person that has these character traits, that has these habits, and those habits that lead to skills. Now, when I went through my nutrition and coaching certification, they had this ranking, in a sense, right? This is something that I'm huge on with all of my clients. We have this result we want at the top. In order to get the result, we need a specific skill. And we need those skills to be applied to get the result and to become that person we want to be. But in order to have those skills, we need consistent habits, which are broken down into actions, meaning we're doing these things repetitively. From those actions, they're literally just tasks, just day-to-day things that you do. From those tasks, you need to, underneath that, have, the right habits and belief patterns and belief systems, right? And underneath those belief systems, you need the right thoughts. Underneath those thoughts, you need the right mental framework. So, I might have said that slightly incorrectly, but really what I'm going is, it all starts in your mental. It's like finding focus, focusing on what it is you actually want, and then doing that allows you to start thinking a specific way, setting your mind. If you look up the word mindset, or even if you just think about what is mindset, it's literally setting your mind. And I heard somebody term it this way a few weeks ago, and it really opened things up for me. If you look at your mindset, you're setting your mind to be in a certain perception, right? So you're believing that, okay, my mind can think through things of this caliber, right? And you're basically framing your mind. And as you do that, then and only then does it become possible that you actually think these things are possible in your own life. Now you have these thought patterns, which occur repetitively, which eventually lead into action and habits, right? And now you're able to take more and more action consistently because you believe yourself to be this person, right? And so as you're doing these things, you're developing the habits, which lead to the skills, and then eventually you apply these skills because, again, it's part of who you are, it's part of your DNA, and you have the results you want. So going through my nutrition coaching certification, they really talked, about just breaking it down to that simple level. And you need to have focus, because without focus, you'll never have the belief patterns, the mindset to do this, because you're not even putting time in to think about what it is you want in your life. Right? And so one thing that I'm big on that used to be such a mental barrier for me is anything you want in life is literally just a skill that's acquired. Right? Like like I just mentioned, this result comes from applied skills and you're applying them because you're used to doing these things over and it's just part of who you are. Then you need to acquire the skill, and the best way to acquire the skill, again, is to take these consistent actions which lead into habit. And the best way to take these actions are to believe it's possible and then just implement it, right? And you have to focus and get your mindset on point in order to have these things. And it's just a domino effect. We're like, okay, because you were able to focus, you achieved the results you wanted and became the individual, right? And so when it comes to building muscle, when it comes to being in the gym, if you can focus on what it is you actually want, and then you can focus on the day-to-day habits when you're in the gym, spending time in the gym, not on your phone, not talking with people, not wasting time, but like legitimately applying your conscious and subconscious brain to focus, then you can expedite this process. And that's why people make so much greater progress than other people do, because they're applying these things on a conscious and on a subconscious level. And those 20 to 40 neurons per second at the conscious level increase dramatically, as do the subconscious. So now your subconscious and your conscious brain are starting to be at this equilibrium where you're priming your conscious brain and it's being fed from your subconscious. So now your subconscious truly deep down believes that all these things are possible for you. And because of this, you end up having a lot more ease applying focus at the conscious level. So even that, what that means really is to unpack for you guys, when you don't feel like doing these things, it's going to be frustrating at first. There's going to be that friction there, right? But you become better and better and better at applying that focus because your subconscious brain is telling you this is the type of person we are, and it becomes easier to have that focus and to become that person. And pretty soon, all these actions you're taking are like on subconscious autopilot mode. And you don't have to apply yourself quite as much because it just becomes easier. And it's like any skill. Like if you ever play a sport, it becomes easier to do that thing. Or like I remember when I first started playing basketball, I'm like on the court and it's like, oh no, I have the basketball. Like I have to look down and dribble it and make sure it comes right back into my palm. I have to also make sure I don't carry the ball. I have to make sure that I don't travel. I have to make sure that my eyes are up and the ball doesn't get stolen. And I also have to make sure I'm doing it fast and my footwork is on point. I have to make sure that nobody takes the ball from me, that I don't pick it up by mistake. Like all these things I have to consciously focus on. And then eventually it gets to a point where it's, okay, I'm looking at the person in front of me or at the hoop or at the guy in the corner and I have the ball here and subconsciously I'm dribbling, even though some of it is conscious, right? It's subconscious for the most part. And maybe I'm shifting my hips this way, but the ball's going that way. Or maybe I'm shifting my hips this way, but the ball's still going this way. And it's all these subconscious thoughts that, because you've done them so many times repetitively over and over and over and over and over again, it becomes a lot easier. And now you're at a point where you're dribbling, and you're pointing this way, and you're looking this way, and you're dribbling the ball, and you're going this way, and you blow past the defender. And then it's like, you get better at these skills because you've just done them so many times. It's the same thing with learning, bro, with your brain, right? You can be listening to, oftentimes I'm listening to a podcast. I'm listening to something as I'm taking notes. In the past, when I first started doing those things, it's like, okay, I have to listen to the thing first and then pause it and then write the notes down, right? But you do it more and more and more. Now you're able to multitask. I know you can't truly multitask super efficiently, but I think you get the point, right? The more you do these things on a conscious level, the more subconscious they become. Just like when you're driving and you're on the highway for 30, 40 minutes, those of you guys that have licenses, I'm sure a lot of you guys watching do, you're driving on the highway for 30, 40 minutes, next thing you know, you're just home and it's like, whoa, I do not remember taking that exit or driving at all. I just remember thinking about X, Y, and Z in my brain. It's because your brain is operating on autopilot, right? Like you're subconsciously on the highway while conscious about something else going on. And it just goes to show that the more you do this, the more neurons fire at the conscious and at the subconscious level. And eventually you get to this equilibrium where you can do a lot more things more efficiently over the long haul. And so when you know this, it's just a matter of doing things with more focus until you get to a point where you can not have to worry about focusing so much. And on the contrary, because you've gotten so good at it, imagine how much progress you can make if you actually focus, right? So when you're in the gym and you're subconsciously thinking about the end result, and you're subconsciously believing that it's possible for you to have this result, and in addition, you're tying in your conscious thoughts to, achieving these goals, then you can achieve so much greater than the average person. Because the average person, they are consciously in the gym, but subconsciously their mind is wandering all over the place. And it gets difficult, right? And like these YouTube videos, for example, when I first started, like I mentioned in some of my previous videos, that like I've never used a script on any of these videos. And when I say script, I mean like I've never planned out, okay, I'm gonna make a YouTube video on this specific topic. 99% of the time, maybe I have a slight idea, but 99% of the time it's just like, okay, I'm just gonna record and talk about something, and it just figures itself out. Now, after repetition of doing this, you get to a point where it's like, okay, I just, talked about X, Y, Z, and I don't even remember, planning out these things, right? Because you've gotten so much better at these things, and you can do them at such a more efficient rate. And so, like, if you can apply focus on a conscious level, then subconsciously it becomes easier to operate. And now you're getting more work done. So imagine if you can take that subconscious level and throw it at yourself consciously. You're gonna get like 10 times the rewards. So highly recommend you guys read that book, 10X Rule, by Grant Cardone. It's gonna help unlock things, I think, for you mentally. But most importantly, like what I want you guys to get from this video is, applying yourself at a conscious level with focus eventually leads to that subconscious brain of yours operating a lot more efficiently. And now, when you actually sit down and you are conscious and focusing, and your subconscious brain is operating together, you're going to achieve so much more, right? And so, like, using these frameworks are what have allowed me to gain, over 50 pounds of muscle, right? It's what's allowed me to start building my business the way I want to do it. Because truth be told, when I first started the gym, my brain was all over the place, and I'm thinking about other things. I'm doubting myself, and I'm thinking that's not going to work. And like same thing with my business, right? Like I couldn't sit down for the longest time and focus. And if I did, like I'd be losing focus, right? And I have to like do X, Y, Z to get myself back in there. But now I'm at a point where it's like, okay, I'm pretty much operating on autopilot. Not to say I'm anywhere near, my true potential. Also, pointer, if you guys feel like I'm talking fast, I'm like out of breath. I don't know how people on stage talk for 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, and hold their breath. I used to always watch as a kid, like these YouTube videos, these podcast guys, people on live TV, and I'm like, yo, even musicians, like, don't they need to catch their breath? I'm out of breath talking so much. But I'm gonna wrap the video up, and I just want to throw that in. But like, you guys need to understand that, like, when you apply yourself enough and enough and enough on a conscious level, eventually the subconscious takes over, and you don't have to worry about being conscious. But even when you don't have to worry, still become conscious and apply focus, because the effort and the result just amplifies, right? It becomes a lot easier to do these more daunting tasks, and you get far greater reward. But you need to have focus in the beginning, because it's not going to feel easy at first. You will have that friction of like, okay, I don't feel like doing this thing. I have to maybe set my mind to get into this zone. But eventually, after doing enough time, you get into this flow state, right? You get into this spot where you're like, okay, I'm just doing all this work all the time, and I don't have to worry about it, right? Like I'm just getting into shape with ease, because I know on a conscious level I should be doing these things, but also subconsciously I've rewired my brain to take action, to think a specific way, and to start to look for solutions. So if you set a huge goal for yourself, like I'm going to gain 60 pounds of muscle in the next 2 years, yeah, it might be outstretched, to be honest with you. But if you actually believe it deep down, then you're teaching your brain to subconsciously start finding ways to do that. And that might lead to you watching, 100 hours of YouTube videos that give you the information. That might be you having the idea to invest into a coach that's built a ton of muscle and taught other people to do it in a shorter period of time. That might be, you doing things at a more efficient rate. So like, okay, when I first started getting into the gym, I would do 2-3 hours in the gym multiple times a week, sometimes 6-7 days a week. And what I was getting from that was probably 40% of what I get now. But now I'm able to do it in far less time and get far greater results because it's like, I understand anatomy, I understand biomechanics, I understand how the body works, and I can do it not just more, but also more efficiently. And so if you realize that, like, okay, consciously plus subconsciously applying these things together, it's going to make it a lot easier. You're going to get far greater results because now you're getting the most amount of leverage. And I think that's something most people don't talk about, is getting leverage. Like, do as much as possible, but also while doing as much as possible, make what you're doing as efficient as possible. And that's truly how you make substantial progress, whether it be in the gym, whether it be with your career, whether it be building a business, whatever the case may be, whether it be playing a sport. All of these things you can amplify the results of if you tap into your subconscious and your conscious brain. And now they're working together, united, and it's going to give you the results you want. But it all starts with focus. Find focus, because you need focus to figure out what it is you truly want to do and what the goal is for you. And once you apply focus, then you can start to actually devote time to it. And then when you start to devote time to it, it becomes easier to operate more efficiently, right? And it's, again, like back to my analogy with basketball, like you can now dribble while not looking, right? Like you can dribble while not looking and be looking at the clock, like how much time is left on the shot clock, for example, right? Or for you baseball people out there, right? Like, okay, you're in the outfield, like I played center field growing up, right? Like you're in the outfield, like running. You're looking at the ball while running, your feet are moving efficiently, you're making sure you don't stumble over your feet. And why is that possible? Well, it's because you've done it so many times, you've applied the conscious effort, the conscious focus, that subconsciously you can do these things at a greater rate. And this is why you're able to excel at things, because conscious and subconscious are operating together. And that's what you need to do with any goal in life, if you want to achieve the most amount. And the nice part is, your brain adjusts, your body adapts. So even if you're not conscious about it, subconsciously you do improve. So even if you're not trying to do these things, the more you repeat a task, the easier it becomes. So now imagine what you could do if you were conscious about it and you were subconsciously excelling. Like, you're going to make so much greater rewards and see the results so much faster. So I hope you guys know that finding focus is the most important thing if you want to achieve any goal. Focus your attention on what it is you want. Once you do that, apply your focus to achieving that thing. And try to think out of the box. Try to think about a goal that's so much greater than you otherwise would have thought about. And allowing yourself to do that allows you to get the result in far greater quantity, but also in far less duration. So I hope that helps some of you guys out there, because for the longest time, I was unable to see the results I wanted in the gym, or my career, or in school, etc., because I was not applying both my subconscious and my conscious brain. And when you do both together, you literally are in this flow state where it becomes so much easier to do more. And because you're not having to consciously apply yourself as much, it becomes easier because you have less pressure, right? You're less worried about what's going to happen. And you know that you've done these so many times. Not to say ever it's easy, but you become better at doing more, and you can manage more stress, you can get more done in the same amount of time, right? So like, you're getting more done with less. And because you're also more efficient, that is truly what creates the leverage. And that's allowing you to see so many greater rewards than the average person. So you need to find focus if you want to achieve great things in life, in any goal. And if you focused all the way through to the end of this video, and you actually absorbed what I said, then you understand like exactly what I'm saying. And maybe you have to watch it a second or a third time. But you went from point A at the beginning of the video to point B at the end of the video, and you were able to focus, right? Maybe you were multitasking and doing something else and you were subconsciously listening. But now imagine what would happen if you were doing that, but also like sitting down, right? Like, not just listening, but actually paying attention and doing it over and over and over and over again, watching this video, watching my other videos, and taking the information, the skills that I've acquired from my own brain, and putting them into yours. Like, imagine what would happen. You would get 12 years of fitness experience, 12 years of knowledge, 12 years of application and results in far less time. And that's truly leverage. But it all starts with finding focus. And that's going to allow you to achieve any goal you want. Now, if you watch all the way to the end and you want to hear like how I was able to apply this to not just myself, but to my own clients with their own fitness, because again, truly with their fitness, with their nutrition, with their training, like we want results fast. We don't want to wait 6, 10, 15 years. We want to make progress in 6, 12 months, maybe even less for some of you guys, right? And knowing that I'm a coach and I've done these things for over 12 years, right? And I've helped my clients do these things for so much less of time, right? It would make sense that you work with somebody that knows what they're doing and that can expedite the process for you. Now, if you are somebody that wants to know about that, then you can do one or two things. One, you can skip the line. You can schedule your complimentary consultation at the end underneath this video. And that's if you want to like jump, make faster progress. But if you want to put it off and do it on your own and apply what I said in this video, and you want to be able to have the conscious and the subconscious operating efficiently, then I want you to hit me with a follow on Instagram at jstarfit, and I'll break down more and more of these concepts for you guys, because to be honest, it's the frameworks behind the way I think that's let me get these results. It's not the results that I'm going to teach you. Yes, that's important, but it's more so the way I think about these results, because if you know how to achieve these things, you can achieve way more, you can make better progress than I made by applying these things and doing so more efficiently. So follow me on Instagram at jstarfit if you want to hear more details. And thanks for staying until the end of the video. I'll see you guys in the next one.